Hey, this is a demo to explain how we manage access controls and privacy settings at Storytell. So we have the concept of access levels, and so this exists for each different type of entity that we work with. So that could be a report or a piece of content or a tag group or a chat message. So anything that you can toggle an access setting for. So for example, here's my dashboard. You can see here, you can set it to public, private, company, or private. And so those three options mirror what you see here. So public, private, or on the back end, we call it same email domain, but this basically checks that only users that have the same email domain that have validated or verified their email have access to that. So I just want to show just in the code what this actually looks like. So let me show you first what it looks like if I try to access a report that is set to private company. So this should have the same email domain settings. So we have this function called user can access entity, and this function verifies that a given user has access to a specific content created by a specific user with a certain access level. So in this instance, the content we're trying to access has the access level of same email domain. This is the user that created it, and this is me, the user that's making the request. And you'll see that this is my ID, so I'm not the user that created this. So since this is the same email domain, this should only return true if these two users have the same email domain. So just kind of want to talk through what this logic is here. So the first thing we check is if the access level is public, then anybody can access it. So there's no need for further checking, which is not the case here. This is for our CX team, who sort of has access to all content. Otherwise, if a user is logged out, at this point, we say that they don't have access because we know it's not a public piece of content. So that should return false in that case. But here's the case we care about in this instance. So when the access level is same email domain, we need to get information about the user that created the thing that we're interacting with. And so that's what we've done here. And so you can see this is that user account, which is in fact a Storytell.ai user. And we check that that user has a verified email address, or rather, sorry, that I have a verified email address, and that my email domain matches that of the user that created the thing, which in this case is true. And so I should successfully be able to access this. So if I now go back over here, you can see it did correctly load. Let me show you the opposite case now. If I try to access a report that's set to private that I don't own. So here again, we're at that same function. So I'm just going to skip over these things we've already talked about. And now in this case, entity access level should be private. And so all it does is compare that my user ID, whether my user ID matches the user that created the report, which it does not in this case. So what will happen is the backend will throw an error message like this. And then this is how it displays on the front end. So that's just a very high level of how access controls work. There's some more details going into the MySQL setup as well, but just wanted to give a brief overview there. Some other improvements we've made to the API. Previously, we were passing an authorization token to validate or to authenticate user rather in the body of the request. That's now been moved to the authorization header as a best practice. And removed another sort of backdoor that we had previously built in as we were building the product that no longer exists. So it should be much more secure now. Sort of as a separate topic, I wanted to talk about tag groups. And so tag groups here are a group of tags, obviously. So if I go here and look at this UI, you'll see here are all of my tags, and tags can be organized into groups. And so here's a tag group. And so just to explain how tag groups are set up on the back end, there's sort of two tables that control them. We have a tag group table. This contains, it's one row per tag group, and it has the metadata about the tag groups, like the ID, the name, the user ID. And then separately, we have a mapping table that maps essentially a tag to a tag group. And so just to illustrate this with a bit of a diagram, so obviously there's content. Each piece of content generates a report. Reports can be assigned to one or more tags, and tags can be assigned to one or more tag groups. So that's just to clarify how that works. And then there's some more details in here about how the front end interacts with the back end to create a tag group. But for the sake of this demo, I don't know that that's super relevant. I think that's the majority of what I had to share here. This is related to an upcoming functionality where users will be able to essentially publish chat messages. So we've added this access level, the exact same logic that I was just demoing for the report up here, to chat messages. Chats default to private, so by default, nobody has access to the chat messages that you've sent except obviously yourself. But in the future, users will be able to publish or share chat messages and set it to public. And what that means is that if you say you're chatting with a tag, so going back to like this example here, if I were to send a chat message to this tag group, By default, again, that's private, but I could in the future set that to public and to publish it, which means that if I were to share this group with somebody else, assuming this group is shareable, that any public messages within that group are also visible to that user. And so this is just a great way for users to share chat messages that have interesting responses or things worth sharing. All right, I think that's it. Thank you.